And welcome back to Clash of Cultures as we continue our 2023 college football preview. Our next stop is Fayetteville, Arkansas, as we look at the Arkansas Razorbacks. But before we get into football, like always, we want to give love for all the support we've received. So if you made it this far, please press the like button and subscribe button. And with that being said, Stephen, what's your thoughts on the Razorbacks this year?
So, another overrated SEC team. Hey, we're going to start off just like that.
Dang!
Arkansas fans, I'm sorry, but that's just how I feel. We talked about the Florida video. That one got posted yesterday. But I'm just going to keep it a buck. I think this team is going to be – I'm not going to say they're going to be bad. The problem is they play in the SEC. That's what it comes down to. I think if they were in any other conference, they would be able to compete. But you're in the SEC, unfortunately. So I think being ranked number 30, they're not going to finish in the top 30. And I think –
Wait a minute, ESPN projects them to win 6.8 games?
Yeah, so 7-5 basically.
Oh, my goodness.
So, I mean, but again, I think that is a little weird to me, and that's a little bit more of the SEC bias, because how do you have them ranked 30th, but you think they're going to go 7-5?
Yeah, that makes no sense.
That doesn't make any sense to me, unless they're having, 9 SEC teams ahead of them. So, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, because 7-5 is, I mean, it's an average record. It's not a great record, especially when you're talking about fringe top 25.
Well, yeah, 7-5 should not be 30th.
That's kind of crazy. And you also notice in the other prediction videos, right underneath their win-loss, we had what's the percentage of them winning the conference? They have a 0% chance to win the conference. So
I'm actually very shocked by that.
And it might be 0.2 or 0.1, whatever it was. I didn't want to put it on here to disrespect Arkansas. So that's why I didn't put it on here, because it's relevant for me to put it on there. But just looking at last year's schedule, obviously they lost to A&M by 2. They got blown out by the Bulldogs, got blown out by Alabama, lost to Liberty by 2, lost to LSU by 3, and then lost to Mizzou by 2. 2 of those games they should have not have lost. Now, I'm not going to be mad on the A&M, Alabama, Mississippi State, or the LSU loss, but you shouldn't be losing to Mizzou or Liberty for starters. And so we're going to get straight into like the roster build up and everything and makeup and stuff like that, just so I can kind of explain why I said I don't think this team's going to be very good. You lost your entire receiving production. You lost everything receiving wise. You lost all 3 receivers. You lost your best tight end to the transfer portal. You lost Drew Sanders to the draft. You lost your safety. So I think, again, I'm not sure what team I said this about, but when you look at the transfer portal, I think the transfer, we'll call it the transfer portal. You look at their losses compared to their gains, I don't think it's close. Now, we talked about Ole Miss, I believe it was a few days ago, or when we dropped the video, and it was, I feel like the production they were bringing in could mask what they lost. I don't think that's the case in this situation. Now, KJ Jefferson reminds me of Anthony Richardson, just because he's like that prototypical like college football quarterback. They may not play the same, but when I look at KJ Jefferson, it's like he's like the prototypical college football quarterback. You don't expect him to go to the league and have a great career, but he's just that like Tim Tebow, like that college guy. Like I don't. It's really hard to explain. Like when I think of college quarterback, KJ Jefferson kind of embodies that. And then you have Raheem Sanders, who had a great year last year. But I just think coming in as the number 30 team is highly overrated. They had a decent recruiting class, top 25, 9 out of 14 in the SEC. So, I mean, they're bringing in 2 of the top 6 tight ends in that class. I don't know how much that really means when you're talking about tight ends. But I think this team is going to be middle of the road. They're going to be decent. I don't think they're going to be a top 25 team at the end of the year. I don't think they're going to be a top 30 team at the end of the year. But what do you think about them and KJ Jefferson and what they're bringing back and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I think there's one piece here that allows me to see their trajectory a little bit higher than you.
And it's KJ.
Arkansas is also bringing back 4 of its 5 starting linemen from last year. So KJ Jefferson, I think, is much better, and I'm going to say at the college level, than Anthony Richardson. So we're talking about a guy who did a whole bunch for Arkansas last year. You're talking about over 2,500 yards passing at 68% completion percentage. Again, if we're comparing that to Anthony Richardson, if you remember from the Florida video, Anthony Richardson was at like 53% completion percentage.
When I was comparing, I just meant like the usage rate kind of. Like, that's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Yeah, and then Jefferson also gave you he was the second leading rusher on the team at over 600 yards.
9
Raheem
touchdowns.
Sanders, Raheem Sanders is legit. He is the truth, right? So when I look at this team and I think they are going to be pretty good and they're going to be players in the SEC West, I think they have a very good college football quarterback. They have a top running back in the SEC behind a pretty much returning line. Now, you're very right. They are losing all three of their top receivers from last year, but
All
I
four.
don't.
All four.
Well, yeah, the three
Tight.
starters and then the
Tight.
tight end. Yep. But I don't think they rely on the passing game as much as some of these other teams, right? I think if they were a team that threw the ball for 4,000 yards and threw it all over the yard, it would be a little bit more of a problem of a situation. I think Arkansas is a team that's going to rely on playing in the trenches. They're going to give the ball to Raheem Sanders 25, 30 times. KJ Jefferson's going to run it another 10 to 15 times. And yeah, they're going to throw the ball around a little bit, especially as teams try to stack the box against them. I don't think them losing that many receivers is going to affect them, like I said, as much as and I know people are going to go back and look at old videos, and there are teams that I kind of lambasted for having lost that many receivers or having lost a number of receivers. I don't think it affects Arkansas as much. Again, 4 starting offensive linemen returning, KJ Jefferson and Raheem Sanders. I think Arkansas is going to be players in the SEC West.
And my question is, not only to you, to Arkansas fans.
Well, I'm not an Arkansas fan.
Well, no, I'm saying you and Arkansas fans. Why? It's not like why did Trey Knox and Keatron Jackson leave? They didn't go to the league. And Trey Knox, I mean, what did he have last year? He had
like
300 yards and 5 touchdowns.
300 yards, yeah.
Yeah, 300 yards, 5 touchdowns. Keatron Jackson had about 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. And Landers and Hasselwood are both gone. So Jackson probably would have been penciled in as a number 1 option. Why leave and go to Baylor? Now, if you want to say it's a more pass-heavy system, he'll get a little more touches. I could see that.
Yeah.
But I think KJ Jefferson is a better quarterback than what Baylor has. Yeah. And, I mean, Trey Knox, I think he went to South Carolina, so he's going to be playing with Spencer Rattler. So I can kind of see that. And they lost Jaheim Bell, so I can kind of get with that. But I don't understand that move. And that makes me a little nervous just because who's going to fill in those spots. Right. But to get into their – so I have their floor at 4-8. They're ceiling at 9-3. Obviously, you guys see the final prediction I have at 6-6. Now, when I look at their schedule, I think it's really weird. We sometimes talk about having a backloaded schedule or a front loaded schedule. It's kind of anomaly that all of their tough games are dead center. I have them starting off 3-0. I think that's pretty fair to say. But I think after that, you go through an absolute gauntlet. At LSU, I don't think they can win that game. I think A&M is going to be better than what people think, and I think A&M is going to give them trouble, and I'll probably favor A&M just because it's a home game for them. I probably favor A&M even though it's a home game for them. And then at Ole Miss and at Alabama, I think both those teams are just better teams. Mississippi State, I think that's the game I went back and forth with quite a bit was the Mississippi State one. We just posted the Florida video. I think Florida and Arkansas are very similar this year. But the edge that I think Arkansas fans would say they have is the quarterback position. But I think the same way I said in the Florida video, I think them playing at home, Florida being at home, they're just going to rally around the swamp. And I favored Florida in that game. So I had them losing 6 straight games and then winning the last 3 ending the season 6-6. But when I made my floor, the only 4 games that I said I think they can win all 4 was Western Carolina, Kent State, FIU, and Mizzou. I think every other game they could lose. From BYU to Auburn, I think they could lose all of those games. That's why I have their floor at that. And my ceiling, I had it 9-3. The only teams I cannot see them beating are LSU, Ole Miss, and Alabama.
Yeah, I think this Arkansas team is a little bit better than maybe at least you're giving them credit for. I think they're going to be pretty good. I have them obviously losing to LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, the 3 teams that I think are going to do very good in the West. But I think they're going to win the rest of the games, and I think they're going to make those games even close. My ceiling is I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to get 2 of those games. I think that Ole Miss game is one of the games I went back and forth on, and honestly, I almost picked Arkansas in that game. So that really leads me down to the LSU-Alabama game. And like I said, I think Alabama will be a little bit down, and when I say down, I mean by Alabama standards this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to get Alabama. The only game that I do not feel confident about is the LSU game.
And just kind of a fact, I'm pretty sure I'm correct on this. They play 12 games. I think this is a record for them to have 8 home games. And I don't think that's ever happened in their team's history. And it's weird because all 4 away games are honestly
you have them losing every away game.
Yeah, and I mean they're probably going to be underdogs in every one of them except the Florida game, maybe. But the other 3 games are going to be an underdog game. So I just think the 4 opponents that like I would say Arkansas fans are most concerned about, at least 3 of the 4, they're all away games. So I just feel like you're already behind the needle there. And that's another reason why I had them losing majority of the away game or all the away games. But
majority of them.
No, what I meant to say is that's the reason why I have them losing the away games, just because I don't think they can beat teams of that caliber at home, let alone away. I just think the away. I mean the fact that they're their away team just makes it even worse.